Good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Lee May. I am pastor of Transforming Faith Church. And look, I am so excited to be on this evening with you all. Look, we don't take it for granted that this is a Friday evening. It is 7 p.m. You are trying to wind down. You are trying to turn on one of your movies or videos that you have recorded on your DVR, and you just trying to chill. But I pray if you click by here today, just hang out with us. We're going to be on for about an hour or so, and we are talking about community social justice. This is the Community Social Justice ATL Facebook page, and we're excited to be here. Today, we are going to be talking about the United States Senate runoff race election here in Georgia. Look, the entire country, and I would even say the entire United States of the entire, not just country, but the entire world is looking at us here in Georgia because they're trying to see what's going to happen in this runoff race. And so if you're watching this, we're going to invite you all to share this post right now. I've just shared it to our church Facebook group, my personal Facebook group as well. Share it with your family, share it with your friends. We're going to have a serious conversation here on this evening about this runoff election. And I'm super excited, you all, because we have two phenomenal guests that are going to be with us here on this evening. We have a phenomenal woman named Brenda Winston that is going to be sharing with us. We're going to have a great conversation. And then we have Pastor Horatius Harris, friend that I've been knowing over 20 plus years, who is doing phenomenal work at his church, Nexus, as well as a great community activist as well. And so we're excited to have both of these individuals on this evening to talk about this runoff election here in Georgia. Again, this is an exciting time, but this race is not just about two individuals winning this race. It's not about David Perdue or John Ossoff. It's not just about Raphael Warnock or Kelly Loeffler. It's bigger than them, and we want to have this conversation because elections have consequences. So this evening, we're going to be talking about what kind of consequences are at stake, what kind of things are at stake, how it can impact our community. And so without further ado, you all, again, before I bring on our first guest, share this page live this evening, y'all. You don't want to miss out on this serious conversation about what's going on in our state and this country. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up our first guest, Miss Brenda Winston. I want to tell you so much about her. I have her bio, but she is coming in now. Hey, Brenda, how are you? Good. Well, can you hear me?
I was about to say CEO May.
You don't take me back. God promoted me. And don't demote me back in the world of politics. God gave me a promotion, and
we appreciate you. We appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us this evening. Can you share with us just a little bit about who you are, kind of what's your passion and what you're doing right now? Then we'll jump into the conversation momentarily.
Very well. Pastor May, of course, and community social justice. I am Brenda Winston. I used to live for a number of years in DeKalb County. In fact, Pastor was my CEO. And prior to that, he was my commissioner. I used to live in the Camelot subdivision. So I'm sure, Pastor May, you're very familiar with that subdivision. I worked tirelessly in the Stan Watson campaign. And then I moved to Henry County. Now, since I've lived in Henry County, I have been working tirelessly with the community, with voter education, voter outreach. We've done so much work with getting our young people registered to vote, going to the high schools and registering them to vote. This year, we did a lot of online voting, having them go directly to the My Voter page so they can register online. And I've done a lot of work with that. I've also done a lot of work with outreach in the community through National Council of Negro Women. and of course through my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta sorority. So I'm excited to be here to talk about this most important race in Georgia. It is an important race not for our state, but for the country. And like you said, the whole world is looking at Georgia. The whole world is looking at the Peach State. So it's important that we get those 5 million plus people who voted in the November election. It's important that we get them back out to the polls for the runoff. And that's why I'm here. I'm excited.
Awesome, awesome. So good. You know, half of Henry County are former DeKalb County residents anyway.
That's
so
right.
we're gonna call y'all Southeast DeKalb. That's what we're gonna call y'all. And
okay, we'll take it. We'll take it.
yeah. And I always say elections really do have consequences. I literally have been on calls here recently over the past week with your new chairwoman, Carlotta Harrell. And,
That's right.
And it's exciting to have a Black woman leading your county, and that is truly an awesome thing. And so if people want to know if your vote really does count, you got to just look at the people who are elected. That's kind of a historic move in Henry County to have this Black woman who has this passion about governing and God's people. So thank you, Brenda, for being on this evening with us.
Thank you, Pastor May.
Amen. All right. Well, our next guest on this evening is none other than a friend of mine, a buddy of mine I've been knowing for about over 20 years. And he's a pastor here locally. He actually has a church in 2 states, but I'll let him introduce himself. We're bringing on none other than Pastor Horatius Harris. He'll be joining us here in a moment. And as he is coming on, I'm so excited to see him virtually, because I hadn't seen him in the flesh in a long time as well. Pastor Harris, how you doing this evening?
I am wonderful, Pastor Lee. Thank you for allowing me to be on Community Social Justice, ATL. Miss Brenda, welcome. It is good to be on tonight.
Awesome, awesome. Would you share with the viewers just a little bit about you, your story, and kind of your passion around this topic?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, a native of Atlanta, grew up on the south side of Atlanta. So woo to my Clayco and all of my Riverdale, Old National, Old Natale. That's where I grew up in College Park. I spent a lot of time over there. So I'm glad we got out to vote. I'm so excited about that. But Nexus Community Church, I'm the pastor, lead pastor there. We are just about the community, to help the community any way we can. And this is one of the ways that we want to help the community, is by encouraging them and making it possible for them to vote by any means necessary.
Awesome, awesome. Again, this is Community Social Justice, ATL. If you're watching this, we want you to share this show right now. Stop, just share, hit the share button. If you could do a watch party, do a watch party as well, because we are having serious conversations about this runoff election and what it means. Look, thank you again, Brenda and Pastor Harris, for joining us this evening. If you would, and either one of you can jump in as you feel led to, this election. One of the major consequences about this election is that the outcome of these 2 U.S. Senate seats can really determine the direction of the United States government. We have a president-elect that will be sworn in January, and the courts keep saying it over and over and over again. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as his vice president. You have the United States Congress, the House of Representatives, that's pretty much in place. The Democrats have a majority in the House, although this election, it narrowed some, and so they don't have quite the majority that they once did. But the United States Senate is almost in a dead heat. If these 2 Democratic candidates win, it literally will be a 50-50 tie in the United States Senate. That is major, you all, because if there's ever a tie on any legislation, the United States Vice President, Kamala Harris, would be the tiebreaker. And that's something that really doesn't get talked about a whole lot. You know, if these 2 Democrats win, Kamala Harris would be one of the most powerful vice presidents in modern day history, a Black woman. So not just the fact that we have set a precedent with the first woman, and of course Black woman being in this position, but she would have real power. Not only the power that it appears that Joe Biden is partnering with her and allowing her to operate in, but she will have some real power in terms of breaking any potential ties in the United States Senate. So I set all that up to say this. You all, where that is concerned, can you all kind of share with the viewers kind of what are some things when you think about what's at stake in this election? What are some pressing issues with our community? And I'm talking about African Americans. I know people of other backgrounds and races may be watching this as well. But when you think about what's at stake, what are some pressing issues that really rises up to the top for you?
Well, Pastor May, I'll take that. At the top, in my opinion, for our community, healthcare. Healthcare is on the ballot. Education of our children on the ballot. Police reform for our Black boys and our Black girls now are on the ballot. So those items are very important and critical for our community. Joe Biden said, we had his back. And he responded with that by saying to us, he has ours. He is showing us constantly with his nominations as he rolled them out, that he understands what we have been fighting for these numbers of years. And now we have an opportunity in the state of Georgia to elect for the first time 2 senators. That never happens. You know, they always have the senators run in off years. So the 2 senators of the state are never up for re-election at the same time. So everyone must understand this in itself is unprecedented for us to have that. And if we were to get those 2 seats, that would give, of course, the Democratic Party, that would give the Senate a 50-50 tie. And of course, we know even without the tie, Kamala Harris will be the president of the Senate. That is her job as vice president. She is the president of the Senate. And then she will have voting power if, in fact, we have a 50-50 tie in that upper house. So we're excited about that opportunity, and we're hoping we can get people out to the polls. We're not going to say to you what you need to vote, who you should vote for, but we need to say unequivocally, you have to vote your interest. Look at your community and who can best represent your community and fight for you. Remember, they represent you. So you have got to vote for your interests.
That's good. That's good. Pastor Harris.
Yes. On top of that, I concur with Brenda about everything. This is the education, healthcare, and making sure that our people are taken care of. On top of that, I'm looking long-term, jobs for our community. We have to even retool and re-educate our people, because if you notice, everything went online. And if you're not technically savvy, if you don't understand how to get on the internet, how to, do things over the internet, and it can be very tough to find employment, especially those who are in the hospitality industry, hit very hard. They had to find other ways to make income. And so we have to be mindful that somehow we got to retool our children and our kids so that they can be on the cutting edge when things come around.
No, that's good. That's good. During runoff elections, or special elections, the turnout typically drops dramatically, and the turnout amongst African Americans drops even greater than what the general population would do. One of the realities is we've seen a real gap between the importance of voting and how it relates to our day-to-day life, right? what are some things that y'all think that we can do to just communicate better how being active, how making sure you're registered to vote, although that deadline is passed already for this, how being educated on the issues and how actually mobilizing yourself to actually go out and vote based upon issues. How can we better communicate the importance of doing your civic duty? Just vote. What are some things that you think we can do, you all?
Well, let me. Can I jump in on this one?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think I'm gonna use a leadership principle here. We have the law of the big Mo. The law of the big Mo means the law of momentum. Georgia has momentum on our side, and let's keep that momentum going. And in that momentum, then those that are still engaged, people are very excited about. I see people, representing with T-shirts saying "My state is blue," and so they're really excited about this election. So I think people are very on edge, ready to, even though this is a runoff, I do still think that people are going to be very much engaged. And while they're engaged, let's connect with them now. How do we do that? We do it just like we did earlier, through text messages. I got so many text messages just encouraging me. Did you vote? Are you voting? Who are you voting for? Can we help you? Are you registered? That's how we're going to get them, by using this technology. Let's use it to the fullest, because that's what they're accustomed to.
Yeah. Brenda, what's your thought?
And Pastor, I wanted to add to that, to say simply, it would be perfect if we would all go back to the polls. All 7.5 million of us in the state would go back to the polls, but we know that is unlikely. So what we want people to understand, perfection is not necessary, but guess what is? Completion. Completion is. We have got to complete what we started in November. We still have work to do. So we're asking individuals not to so much go out and vote for someone, but to vote for their interests. I think if we hold each election as it being about ourselves, we have a more likelihood of going back to the polls. We have got to finish strong. We have got to finish the work. We have got to make sure we complete what we started. In Henry County, 71% of the registered voters in Henry County casted a ballot in November.
Wow.
We want that numbers to remain. That is way above the national average. We know the state, and it's way above the national average. We want to maintain that number or even surpass it, because it's important that we finish strong and finish what we started.
No, that is good. That turnout is critical, you all, and these elected officials, the ones that are already elected and those candidates who are running now, they take note of that. They look at the fact that 70% in Henry County, and so guess what they do? Once they get elected, they start paying attention to Henry County. Like, let me make sure the folk that are living in Henry are happy now, because and then you start seeing more and more things done in the interest of the people who are there. So I'm a pastor. Been a pastor now for a little over 3 years, and I have kind of combined both aspects of my life. I've transitioned out of the world of politics, but yet during this election, we have now kind of combined the two, and understanding the power of the church, you all. The power of the church to organize, the power of the church to educate, the power of the church to turn out. And so we launched this campaign called Georgia Votes Together. We started in DeKalb during the November election, and we focused on DeKalb. It was called DeKalb Votes Together then, and we had galvanized many of our DeKalb churches, some of the biggest churches that you can name. And essentially, we were saying the same thing at the same time, and we were realizing this critical kind of momentum and power. And so it really helped work, along with so many other people that were doing things. But you saw the turnout really increase and really do its thing in November. So now we've expanded this to the state of Georgia, and we have about 150 pastors that have been engaged with this, y'all. The churches that are now galvanizing. to get their members out. And all we're doing, we're saying the same thing at the same time, and we're saying it in all of these different venues, through email, through text message, through social media posts, through Sunday morning announcements, etc. And it's something that we really want to encourage people who are watching this. If your pastor or your church is not engaged with this, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to them and say, hey, are you a part of Georgia Votes Together? And if not, I want you to give them this email address. It's info@georgiavotestegether.com. That's info@georgiavotestegether.com. Our website is georgiavotestegether.com. Pastor Harris has been online with us and really is supporting us, as we move forward, because we're trying to gain really this critical momentum. Somebody mentioned about getting all these text messages and these emails. Yeah, I've gotten so many text messages from people. I'm like, how did you get my number? And I know how they get it, because in politics, you can pull the voter rolls, and they're contacting me because I'm a super voter. I vote every time the election doors open up, but we got to utilize our churches. You all are members of fraternities and sororities. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Your sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. I know y'all are doing some work out there. And Brenda, I don't know if there's anything organized that y'all have in place now, but feel free to talk about that. Horatius, with your fraternity as well. We got to galvanize all of the different aspects of our community to get the vote out.
Well, Delta Sigma Theta, our sorority in Henry County, we are working collectively with various other groups to ensure that we get the vote out. We are working with our churches to ask them to help us get the word out through their congregations. We will be putting up some billboards to remind people as they're driving, hey, the runoff is January 5th. Early voting starts December 14th. We will have vans driving around the county reminding with our banner that says early voting has started. The runoff election is January 5th. So we want people to remember and to keep in mind the words of, the great Oprah Winfrey. She said, voting is not just for yourself, but it's for our collective future. So if we look at that, we will be always eager to be like Pastor Lee, a super voter. I tell them I even voted for dog catcher. So we are always going to vote, right? We're always, because we pay property taxes. So once we pay that money into the coffers, we want to ensure the people we put in charge to be stewards of that money are people we want to represent us. So it's important that we vote because our dollars are at stake.
Absolutely. Now I believe that all the Divine is all in on this one. The Divine Nine are all in. We are all working together, making sure that we pull things together. And so we're excited about how every aspect of our community that's important to us, they are jumping in and they are being head on with getting things together for people, to encourage people to get out and stay focused and stay on task. And like Brenda just said, let's finish strong.
Absolutely. So early voting begins on Monday, December the 14th, you all. Early advance voting, where you can go in person and vote. And it all depends on what county you live in. So I encourage you all to check your county elections office website, because depending on what county you live in, they'll have different locations throughout the time. So go to your county elections website, just Google. So if you live in Henry County, Google Henry County Elections Office, and you'll be able to find the website. If you live in DeKalb, I can tell you what it is in DeKalb. It's DeKalbVotes.com, DeKalbVotes.com. You can find that in DeKalb, but regardless of what county you live in, go to your county elections website, and early voting begins Monday, December the 14th. The other thing I do want to highlight is that you can still request your absentee ballot. If you want to vote by mail, you can do that. Y'all, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. Let's be clear. The numbers are still rising. The number of new cases, the number of new hospitalizations, the number of deaths are continuing rising. And so we want you to be safe. And so you can still vote by mail. We proved in November that it is still a safe, secure, and a viable way to vote. You know, you really saw the difference there. And so if you want to request your ballot, I'm going to encourage you to do it right now because time is getting short. But you can go to this website, ballotrequest.sos.ga.gov. That's ballotrequest.sos.ga.gov. I said it slow and I said it twice because they act like they don't want you to go to the websites. These websites are so confusing. Like who writes that for their website? But request it. It only takes literally like a minute or two. It's like 6 fields that you have to fill out, and then they will send you your absentee ballot. And then when you get it, again, that same website that you looked up to find your county elections website, go back to that website and find where your county absentee drop boxes are located. Don't put it in the mail. That's my recommendation. Put it in your county controlled absentee drop box. And then you can also verify through the Secretary of State that they received it. That's how I voted during the primary. I voted that way during November election, and I'm voting that way. I'm literally dropping my absentee drop box, my absentee ballot off tomorrow. I've completed it. I'm dropping it off at the Lithonia Library. I know exactly where I'm going. Right. So let's talk again, y'all, about just some issues. Pastor Harris, I remember seeing a YouTube clip of you. One of your church locations is in Charlotte, correct?
Correct.
I remember seeing a YouTube clip of you going to the city council. And you know, it reminded me of the scripture, you know, where Jesus went up into the temple and he started flipping over tables and you know, that's what it reminded me of, because you were adamant about this particular issue. And I'm bringing that up, and I want you to talk a little bit about it. I'm bringing that up because elections are not just about voting. That's the tip of the iceberg. That's what you do. But the real power for change really begins after election day, and you being an advocate for issues and for people and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about what was going on in Charlotte around that particular issue.
Well, this was right during the time of the Keith Lamont Scott, right after his death, and people were in an outrage about what was going on and how things were happening in the community. And it almost seemed like there was no voice being given to those that were hurting and those that were lost. And it's like they turned a blank wall on for everybody who was there. And I was like, wait a minute, this is not right. I know that we actually elected them to be in that position. You know, why is it that during this time that we can't get any answers? And so I felt it was my duty and my responsibility to step into you're talking about a good amount of citizenry was in that meeting, and people crying, people, you know, really lashing out. But I wanted to represent the community and let them know that, look, you're not just dealing with, you know, just people. These are human beings that you need to speak to. You need to give your heart to. And I wanted to make sure that was heard very loud and clear to every council member that was in that session that night.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Brenda mentioned some of her top issues. Was one of them was criminal justice reform. And that speaks directly to that, because some of the challenges that we've seen across the country when things just get out of control, it's because there's not transparency with law enforcement. It doesn't seem like real justice is moving forward with the prosecutors. They seem overly supportive of law enforcement and doesn't seem to be sensitive enough to the general public and all of that. Brenda, have you been watching much of the legislation in terms of criminal justice reform, kind of talking about around the nation and all of that?
I have, and it saddens me when we use our vote in November and we don't follow up with the people we voted for and are now in those seats. We need to advocate for our community. If an individual has already served his time, he has done the crime, and they have already served their time. Isn't that enough?
Yeah.
When we ask them to come back into society, they now want to call them returning citizens. Okay, that's the new word for them, returning citizens. Well, allow them to return as citizens.
Yeah.
First, the most fundamental right you have as a citizen is to vote.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we can't give them that right. How can we call them returning citizens? So they have all of the cliches and they may sound well on TV, but how do they play in the hood? How does it play for Ray Ray? How does it play for Little Man? If Little Man is back home and he cannot find a job, he cannot vote, what does that mean for him? Where is his hope? America is all about possibilities. It's all about hope and promise. And the preamble is for what? For us to be a more perfect union. If we are aiming to be that more perfect union, and we have people returning back into society as returning citizens, let us restore their full rights as citizens on day one.
Yeah.
They have to pay taxes. On day one, they have to pay taxes. Well, allow them to get registered to vote.
Yeah. Without any kind of preconditions and and all of that. Thankfully in Georgia, it's one of those places, as soon as you get out, you've completed your fines and your fees and you're off of probation and all of that, you're able to just go ahead and register again. I believe you ought to I believe if you get a driver's license, you ought to be automatically registered to vote, but that's just me. In Florida, there was this big kind of, thing that they were allowing these felons to be able to vote. But then they came back and said, well, you have had to have paid all your fines. And it's just craziness because even in this November election, people were disenfranchised, even though they were given the right, the ability to, because they start tacking on all these different things. And here's the thing, y'all, that goes across party lines too. People of color, Black folk typically align themselves with Democrats. But look, I am just as critical of Democrats as I am Republicans. Why? Because you may look at one party as being adversarial to you, but then another party just is not showing up and saying anything. And we need more than just saying no to bad stuff. We need you to write legislation that's going to be positive for us. I want to go to some of the questions that I'm starting to see here online. And one person thought this was a good question. She said, what can you say to those who are encouraging voters to withhold their vote because our Democrat candidates are not doing enough? I think that's a real good good question. What would you say to that person that said, I'm not going to vote because even the Democrats who's supposed to be on our side are not doing enough? What would you say to either one of you all can respond, if not both?
Wrong approach.
Go ahead.
No. Ladies first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Pastor Harris. Right now, we have two choices. We don't have 10 choices.
Yeah.
Now, I may have been for my neighbor when he was running, right? But he's not on the ballot on January 5th. So now what do? Do I decide to sit this one out? If I do that, let me remind people what happened when you sit something out. You get what you get in 2016. 2016 happens when you sit this one out. We can't afford to sit it out. We have got to be present in this process. This is our fundamental right. This is what puts us right in line with Oprah Winfrey. It levels the playing field between us and Warren Buffett. This says Brenda Winston and Bill Gates has the same rights because I voted. So if we want to be active participant in this democracy, that is our first and our most fundamental right. It may not be the most ideal candidate, but it's better than the other. It's better than the other. If you find the one who's a better representation of you and your community, that's the one. You have 3 weeks to decide to go to the polls and cast your ballot as a citizen in the state of Georgia.
That's good. That's good. Pastor Harris, you said wrong approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wrong approach, meaning that if your candidate is no longer in the runoffs or in the election, then, for you to sit it out. Now, look at it like this. What if your candidate says, you know what, I'm no longer in, but I am putting all of my strength behind this person. Now, if you've thought enough of the person who you wanted to vote for, but they're not in it, then at least adhere to what they're saying. They're going to give you some direction on which way to vote. So follow suit. Follow suit. They're doing that for a reason. They're letting you know that I've been close enough to this person. I've asked them some strict and some particular questions that aligns with what I believe in, and therefore I'm going to support them. And so we should look at it from that perspective, because you're right, Pastor Lee. They know if you voted or not. So if you come with, you want to meet with your senator, and you want to meet with your House of Representatives, they look at you like, you didn't vote. I don't know do I take this meeting or not? But I mean, I'm not saying that they won't. I'm just saying that they pay attention to it. So you gotta have a different approach and then say, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So there's another question that came in. It's maybe a little complicated for people to hear, but it came in about the Electoral College, right? The question came in about the Electoral College. It came from our friend Randall Mangum. He said, should we get rid of the Electoral College? And I don't know if you all have any thoughts on that. I'll share mine if you do or don't, my thoughts as well. But what are your thoughts about the Electoral College?
Well, Pastor Lee, the easy answer will always be, let's just set it aside, right? And the majority let the voters pick the president. The problem with that is, who will stay in North Dakota? Who will stay in Wyoming? The state of California, the state of Texas will pick our president every year. Hillary Clinton won California by 4 million votes. If we took out California's votes in that election in 2016, Donald Trump beat her by 1 million votes.
Oh, don't say that, because he says that all the time. He likes to say that.
But what I'm trying to say is, we would have the states with the majority of the people will pick our president every year. It would give individuals no reason to live in the heartland. So we have to understand the reason for the Electoral College, and the same way Barack Obama was able to thread that needle so well to win a state like Iowa and other states. He won over 300 electoral votes. So if he could do that, we certainly should be able to do the same. I'm not a big supporter of the Electoral College, but I understand the reason why the founders put it in place. And my vote would always be to keep it until we can assure that every state will have a true role in the election of our president.
Okay. All right. I hear you. Pastor Harris, you got any thoughts on that? Or?
Well, I think the Electoral College has its place because it in many cases, it can level the playing field. So, when you're looking at states like, we were talking about in the heartland and in the Midwest, where, certain category of people are not represented, then you would have a certain mindset that will prevail every time. So I'm thankful for the fact that we have the ability to have the electoral college. It does have its place. I don't know if we should get rid of it. I just think we need to look at, how do we do politics, all across the board. So that needs to be reviewed.
I hear you. I'm gonna be a little. I'm gonna be an alternative thought, because I don't know that we should get rid of it. I do think we should have a substantive conversation, and there should be some substantive work around that. The reality is this, and this is why the Electoral College, for me, I always feel some kind of way when I think about it, because for the general person who doesn't quite understand the Electoral College, when you make your vote, you are voting for that person. You are voting for that person for president. But what you're really doing is voting for the electors to support the candidate that you want elected. Mm-hmm. And so there's kind of like this bridge in between you and your presidential candidate. The reason I feel some kind of way is because it's directly connected to the 3/5 compromise, to slavery, how you number black folk, and it's directly connected to that, because it's that whole thing, and it just has me thinking about the original sin of this nation and the fact that this nation still hadn't dealt with it. So when I think about it, I always feel some kind of way on this. And another reason is I feel some kind of way about it is because although it levels the playing field, but it also reduces where the attention is given to about 6 states where we are now. 6 to 10 states. Every election is the focus, and they spend much more money there. Their issues are crafted around the issues that resonate more in those areas. For example, I remember when President-elect Joe Biden in a debate talked about getting rid of fracking, or fossil fuels rather. And his point was yes, over time, but he said it emphatically, yes, we're gonna get rid of it. And Donald Trump said immediately, well, you just lost Pennsylvania and Ohio, and that was a reality. That was something that even Joe Biden had to come back and kind of give some clarification, because that is a big industry for jobs in those areas. So I do think, but here's the reality, and this is for people who would say, I don't want to vote because of that particular, reason. It's the structure that we have, so we got to work with it. We got to work with the structure that we have. We know how it is, so let's be smart enough to navigate it in our favor. All right, so there was a question about how do we increase voter participation in Georgia in all areas? Can y'all kind of think about some creative ways that you think we can increase voter participation throughout Georgia, not just in certain pockets, not just for the wealthier people, or not even just for Black people, or just for Latinos? What are some ways that you think we can increase voter participation?
I think we have to meet people where they are. Meet them at the barbershop, the beauty salon, the beauty supply store. Meet them at their churches. Meet them at PTAs. Now everyone is on Zoom. Everyone is on some type of web seminar. Meet them in a WebEx event. We have got to meet individuals where they are and explain to them how critical the election is to their life. Because we can't just tell them, oh, it's important to vote. Oh, our ancestors. All of those things are meaningful. But it may not mean anything to someone who's just trying to pay the rent. So got to explain to them how important the election is to their life right now. And if we can do that, if we can bridge that gap from the haves and the have-nots and show them how voting is the equalizer, if we can show them that, I think we can mobilize people to the polls.
Awesome.
Yeah. I would add to that we got to be just as loud on non-election years as we are on election years. So
you mean elections don't happen every 4 years?
You know what it was? You know, we get loud when it's time to vote, but then after that, we hear nothing. And so people are not connecting. How does the fact that I voted for this person, how has that affected my everyday life? Like Brenda just said, you know, how is it helping me pay my bills? How is it helping me get to work? How is it helping me take care of my family? And they're not connecting the dots. So there needs to be a mechanism to pull that and string that together so people can see the effects of their vote in their everyday life.
No, that's good. We have to figure out a way to make politics and government relevant to people's lives. It's just, I think there's just that big disconnect. You know, there's a passage of scripture in Judges right around chapter 2, and it says, there arose a generation that knew not the God of their fathers, right? And what had happened is the children of Israel had been released from Egypt, right? Moses had died. Joshua was Moses's successor, and he died. And after Joshua died, it's as if the people forgot all the phenomenal things that God had done for them, leading them through the wilderness and allowing them to get out of slavery and all of that. And somehow they forgot. I feel like that's what it is for our community. It's like there rose a generation that forgot all the work that our civil rights icons, all the blood, sweat, and tears of people who fought, you know, slavery and Jim Crow and fought for equal access and equal rights for all people, not just for Black folks, but for all people. And somehow there's been this disconnect between how policy, how government, how politics help to bring on those kind of changes that we wanted to see in our life. And I don't know how to answer. I'm just saying we got to somehow make it relevant. I was on a call with one of many calls. I'm on Zoom calls about this election. I was on one particular one last night, and there was a young brother on there that he's a young brother, and his whole goal is to make voting and being a part of the process sexy and cool for his generation. And it's called the People's Uprising. First of all, I think it's the People's Uprising, I think it's called. And he does a lot of his stuff through TikTok. I was like, oh, okay. And so we were on the Zoom call. I sent him a chat message. I said, I need you to open me up a TikTok account because we're gonna do this thing together. I said, my kids will probably have a fit. They see me on TikTok. But whatever it takes, we got to do to connect, right?
Yes.
We got to do to connect. So, y'all, our time is starting to wind down. And I want y'all to be thoughtful about any kind of parting thoughts or statements of things that we can do to really get people energized and engaged about going out to vote, or even how the results of this election can be have a direct impact on our lives. Those are two kind of questions. So let's start with the first one first. Give us your thoughts about what we can do to increase voter turnout in this election. Brenda, you want to start?
Okay. You know, we are my sorority, and I'm also a member of National Council of Negro Women.
Yeah,
so both of us are doing a lot of text banking. We're working closely with Fair Count, and we're doing text banking every Wednesday night. We're texting. So, Pastor Lee, you may have received one of my texts. So we're texting everyone and making sure that they have a plan to vote. The thing I think is very important is we can have a plan to vote. I remember when I was young, when I was 18, there was no plan to vote. You voted on election day. Yeah. But now you can actually strategize and develop a plan to vote that works for you and your schedule. We have 3 weeks of early voting, about 18 days, right? And then you can still turn in your absentee ballot. You can drop it off in the drop box. You don't even have to mail it. Or you can vote on election day. You can vote absentee, early, or on election day. Come up with a plan. And once you've developed a plan for yourself, find out about your children. your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, your neighbors. Take 5 people with you so that they can vote as well, either absentee early or on election day, because it's important. We know over almost 5 million Georgians voted in November, and it was a very, very high number, but we can surpass that number. Plus, we registered more people between the November election and now. So we have even more people on the rolls. Your goal as an individual in the state is to become like Pastor Lee and Pastor Harris. Become a super voter. And you can become one today by never missing an election. And guess what? The people you elect, they pull up your voting record, because voting record is public information. And they can pull it up, and you know what they'll say when they see Brenda Winston coming? Oh, I'm going to take that meeting with Brenda. She's a super voter. I'm going to take that meeting with Brenda Winston because she is a super voter. And not only is she a super voter, she can mobilize additional people to vote. So use your power. Your vote is your power. You spend the summer protesting in the midst of a pandemic. Now use that protest power as your vote and cast it again in this runoff. And let's go ahead and finish the job.
That's good. That's good. That is really good. So you were the one texting me, Brenda. Okay. I got to lock your number in.
Well, I want to be correct. I want somebody to fact check me on this, because I was reading and I heard that and we're not endorsing one particular candidate, but it was awesome for me to understand that Raphael Warnock, if elected, would represent Georgia in the Senate as an African American for the first time. That hasn't happened in Georgia.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I'm sitting here like, I can't believe that Georgia has had a lock on this particular area of our lives so long. It needs to be broken up. It needs to be revisited. Something needs to happen. But everything that Brenda just said, which is get out and mobilize other people to vote. Encourage them to not quit. We're not done yet. We're not finished yet. Let's go ahead and finish. Let's go ahead and get this completed. And January 5th, we'll have the results that we desire for our communities. So I'm excited the fact that we're making history even during this time, just by getting out and having a high number of voters, even in a runoff.
Yeah. And I would say this: you can do your own text banking. You can get in your own phone and text 5 of your least likeliest friends to vote. Now, let's be clear. You know who they are. You know exactly who they are. Text them and tell them to make sure they go vote. You can text them this web address that I gave you. If they're lazy or just scared of the pandemic, they can request their absentee ballot again by going to this website, ballotrequest.sos.ga.gov. Text that to 5 people. Tell them hey, go vote. Request your absentee ballot, and your ballot will come in. You can fill it out. You'll put it back in the envelope, and you'll take it to one of your county-controlled absentee box drop-off locations. You can do that. Do your own text banking. Put it on social media. Put it on your TikTok account if you got one. Yeah. All right, y'all. We got about 5 minutes left. Any parting words, you all? Thank y'all so much for being on this. This has been an amazing time together. It's good to see you all. Brenda, I know you. I know your face. I know Camelot. That was in the heart of my commission district over there in Ellenwood. And y'all brought me over a number of times over there at the police station, over at the fire police station. I remember that over there on River Road. I appreciate you. Pastor Harris, thank you for the work that you do as well. Before we close up out of here, any parting words, you all, that you want to give to the listeners before we cast off?
I sure would like to leave them with this. You know, many times we hear the cavalry is coming. Well, let me tell you, the cavalry is us. So we are the cavalry. Let's get out there and finish the work.
Let's finish the work. I love it. I love it. Pastor Harris.
We're so blessed to have this opportunity to be the ones to push over. It's like being that Kobe Bryant or that Michael Jordan who gets the last shot of the game, and everybody's watching you to see it goes in. And so this is our opportunity because the world is watching us. Let's make the shot. Let's go vote.
Make the shot like game 6, right? Michael Jordan, game 6, right? I love it. I love it. I love it. Y'all, we're about to log up out of here, but before we do, we just want to highlight a few major dates for us. We're going to start from the end and work our way back. January the 5th, you all, is the runoff election, y'all. If you don't vote early by mail, if you don't vote early in person, January 5th is the last day for you to vote in person at your polling precinct in the community that you reside in. You can go to the state elections office website to find out where your polling place is, to find all of that information. Monday, December the 14th, early voting in person begins, you all. And we want you to take advantage of that. If you're comfortable going out in public and voting in person, go to your county's elections website, right? Remember, Google your county, put your county in, put elections office, whatever your county is, and it should pop up and you'll be able to go onto that website and find. If you're in DeKalb, because we're in DeKalb, I know what that is, that DeKalbVotes.com, DeKalbVotes.com. I don't know if y'all know any other ones. You can put them in here right now, but go there and find out where your early voting locations are in your county. And again, if you don't want to get outside to do it, you can request your voting ballot by absentee by going to ballotrequest.sos.ga.gov. Y'all take advantage of this opportunity to make your voice heard. If you have been a little disgruntled about government, if you feel like government hasn't been speaking to your particular needs and issues, if you feel like our elected representatives are not listening to you and all of that, the very beginning of that is by voting, you all. And so vote. And then we'll begin to work together to figure out what we can do to make sure that our government adequately reflects who we are, that it is really speaking on our behalf. So y'all, really, young, old, I don't care if you voted much at all before, you can vote on or before January 5th. We want you to really take advantage of it. Again, my name is Lee May. I'm the pastor of Transforming Faith Church. I've been your host this evening for Community Social Justice, ATL. I hope they bring me back. I hope I didn't do too bad, but I really enjoyed our time together. Y'all take care. God bless you. And until next time, God be with you.
We'll see you next week.
See you soon.